So I watched a video by just Alex Hicks, and it's basically a clip that he put together as its own video from his AEW Dynamite review, which he attended live in Roseburg, Texas, at the Fort Epic Center. I think that's what it is, the Fort something. I can't remember what the other name is, but it's just called Epic Center. In everybody else's mind, it's just called the Epic Center. It's called Fort Bard or something, I think. But anyway, he said that, in previous opportunities when AEW would come to Houston, straight into Houston or in the Houston area, or region, which, of course, I guess Rosenberg, Texas is, it's in the Houston region. Usually when he had gone previously, like I said, when they would come into Houston or in the Houston area and region, he would be excited. He would be happy. He would be excited. And he would come out of it, ecstatic. He would come out wanting more. He would, come out, hoping and praying, for the next time that AEW would come, into the Houston region area. Now, with that said, though, his more recent experience, which was this past Wednesday, although he thoroughly enjoyed himself and he was there for Sting's, retirement announcement, basically stating that, hey, AEW Revolution 2024 is going to be it for me, or for him. The AEW Revolution 2024 is going to be, the end of Sting's career officially. Even though he was there for that, and he was there for some, decent for some decent to good wrestling in ring, action, as well as for basically the first match of the Rampage tapings, that being Mystico and Rocky Romero. Mystico, of course, formerly known as the original Sin Cara in WWE. Even though he got to see a lot of that, his overall feeling, as he put it, was, it was good, decent show, good to decent in-ring action, but more along the lines of, because it's almost like even being there in person, despite having, I know I'm repeating myself here, but despite having some good wrestling matches, overall, it's the other things that make a wrestling promotion matter in the eyes of a lot of fans that seemingly AEW is falling on. Mostly, it's the storytelling. Like, for example, he's not invested in MJF and Jay White. Now, when they teased MJF and Kenny Omega, eventually, he got invested. When they teased Waldro and MJF, Waldro and MJF, he was invested. Because there's story there with Waldro and MJF, and there's potential story with Omega and MJF himself. So he was more invested in those than what's being, built up to for Full Gear, and that's MJF and Jay White. He's not invested. He's not invested in it, like he should be, or would hope to be. Now, on the other hand, going back to Kenny Omega, he's not he was, granted, trying to be invested in the Omega versus Don Callis family situation, knowing that eventually it's going to have to lead to a Callis versus Omega match. But lately he's kind of felt like, that's not good. It's not, clicking with me. Even though he himself and others like JD and Solomonster have all said, the likes of a Powerhouse Hobbs, Powerhouse Will Hobbs, Sammy Guevara, Takeshita, if you will. Takeshita, I'm just going to say Takeshita. despite them, Sammy Guevara, Powerhouse Will Hobbs, Takeshita, by extension, Will Ospreay, despite despite them all being part of Callis, part of Callis's family, his faction, if you will, knowing that he's a heat magnet and that by being a heat magnet that will transfer onto them, it's basically like Alyx cannot get invested in it overall. Like, he cannot get invested, at all. Whether it's Chris Jericho taking on a member of the Callis family, whether it's Kenny Omega taking on a member of the Callis family, or both of them, it's the Golden Jets, as they call themselves, taking on the Callis family, or it's Kota Ibushi taking on a member of the Callis family. It's like, yeah, you're going to get some great matches. But, overall, where's the payoff? It's like, what is the end goal? Like, what is going on with Don Callis? Like, we know we kind of have an idea storyline-wise why Callis is doing what he's doing. But what is the ultimate end goal here? Is it Callis being in the ring one-on-one with Omega to finally end this and finally put to rest this whole situation? Is the end goal to reveal that maybe Omega is in cahoots with Callis, and this whole Don Callis family is actually the Omega family? We don't know. We don't know what the end goal is, and some might say, well, that's good. That keeps you invested. That gets you intrigued and interested to see what happens next. And I don't disagree. But, it seems that it's not sizzling in Alyx Hicks's mind like it should. And, Alyx is not alone, because there's a lot of other people that feel the same way about not just this storyline with Omega and Jericho and, some allies against the Callis family. It's not just, MJF and Jay White's situation and all that. But even, believe it or not, certain things like the MJF Adam Cole, the better than you baby situation. And, the connection that has with, Roderick Strong and the Kingdom, Matt Taven, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis. It's like even though that in a lot of people's eyes is probably the best storyline going on in AEW right now, it too is kind of like wavering. It's like, where's the payoff? Like, we know it's got to lead to something, but what is it? And then on top of that, of course, you have Samoa Joe, who's the Ring of Honor TV champion. He's targeting MJF, and that could lead to something good. So you have in the eyes of these folks a lot of good stuff that could really be ramped up, and put to the forefront and showcased to get people invested, but it's not there. It's just not there. It's like you're teasing it. It's like, oh, here's a tease, here's the appetizer for something that we got planned, but then there's no follow-through. There's no follow-through. It's like, again, with Waldrow, you're teasing something between him and MJF. That's great. History, perfect. You're teasing something between MJF and Kenny Omega, and the fact that MJF says, hey, 13 more days, bitch, before I break your record. Which he probably will. We don't know. And then you have Omega saying, well, we'll see about that. Again, those things get people interested, but where are you going to go with it? What's the next step? That's the question. That's the question people want to know. It's like, what's the next step? What are you going to do to get us truly invested in your product that we will actually go and spend money to want to see you live in our hometown, or at least in our home region? What is it? What's that next step? I mean, look at Adam Copeland. A.k.a. Edge, and his situation with Christian Cage. I mean, it's like, obviously we know what's going on here. They're even dropping the hints, through Adam, through Christian, of the fact that Christian is jealous of Adam, jealous of his success, and that he's afraid that now that Adam's here in AEW, that once again Adam's going to take his spotlight, and he doesn't want that. He's scared. He's scared of that. And yet here you have Adam, looking at it from a different perspective of, Christian has Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus on his side. That's great. But who's to say they can be trusted? Who's to say that Christian Cage is not the one being played by them? So you have Adam believing, or you have Adam Colton believing that Christian's going to, fall victim to his own vices and everything. He's going to fall victim to the whole dead father thing that he brings up, because he'll be the father figure that he announced he is for Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne, that's going to be left for dead by them when the time is right. So you even have that could really get people invested, because they know the end goal is to lead to a Christian and Adam and Christian reunion. We know that. But yet, where's the real build? It's like, where's the urgency, basically? Where is the urgency in anything that I've mentioned? It seems like there is none. And what does Tony Khan do? What does Tony Khan do? Okay? Instead of addressing that and being like, okay, and getting his teams together, his creative teams together, and be like, okay, guys, we gotta really start pushing these storylines. We gotta give a reason. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. We gotta really build upon these. Instead of doing that, what's he doing? What's Tony Khan doing? Tony Khan instead is coming out and saying, hey, on AEW Rampage tonight, I will have an announcement for a dream match at Collision tomorrow night. Tune in to AEW Rampage on ENT. It's like he's not doing what he should be doing. And on top of that, he's going on freaking radio stations, podcasts, if you will, where he is essentially, ladies and gentlemen, avoiding questions, even to the point that the people that have invited him on there, including someone that went to Wembley to support him for All In, you have that guy and the co-host, mainly the co-host, basically being like, hey, Tony, enough of this avoiding the questions. Tell us straight up what is going on. Let us know. And what's Tony Khan doing? What's Tony Khan doing? Is he doing that? No. He might tease, he might say something, or he might, say something that's alluded to it or connected to it. But instead, he just comes out and says, oh, well, we're doing really good. We're really hot right now, and people need to tune into Dynamite and Collision and Rampage. It's like, Tony, that's not what these guys are asking you. That's not what Ariel Hawani asked you. That's not what anybody that interviews you asks you when it comes to AEW. When they interview you, they are asking for information. They are asking questions concerning situations that you may or may not be able to talk about. Or at least, they want some kind of answer, some straight answer that you can at least, give them. Like with the whole CM Punk Jack Perry deal. Give them some info on that. Instead of being like, oh, well, it was a bad situation, but we had a great show. No, you don't do that. You don't do that, Tony. You give them a straight answer. And that's another thing that's making AEW cold right now. The fact that their boss, their owner, their founder, the guy that spent money, most of his father's money mainly, on this company, which, by the way, his father is a co-owner of, probably more so than him. He just gets to play around in it. Again, this is what's making AEW ice cold. This is one of the major reasons. Tony Khan is not giving straight answers. I mean, people are making comparisons to him and Triple H, and to him and Vince McMahon, and him and Nick Khan. And that's sad. Heck, they're making comparisons to him and Scott D'Amore and the people in charge at Anthem Sports for Impact. TNA. The comparisons they're making all across the board is that those people in WWE that I mentioned, Nick Khan, Triple H, Vince McMahon, Ari Emanuel, they will give you straight up answers. They may not be able to say, everything you want to hear, but they will give you straight up answers as to, what happened and what occurred to the best of their abilities. Same with Scott D'Amore and the higher ups at Anthem Sports when it comes to Impact Wrestling, aka TNA. And that is sad. That is sad because what this is proving once again, and one of the reasons AEW is being ice cold, in my opinion, is that people are now once again seeing Tony Khan as just a fan. Just a super fan, a super mark, if you will. I mean, there have been times where he has shown, yes, I can be a boss. Him firing and releasing CM Punk is one good example of that. And everybody thought, oh, this is great. This is great. This is the Tony Khan we want to see. This is the Tony Khan that's going to, help, is going to, help AEW finally rev its engines up and to the moon, if you will, and never look back. But yet, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. And because of the way he is, the way he acts, the fact that he is signing major legendary talent and up-and-coming indie talent that WWE would love to have their hands on, the fact that he's doing all that, and yes, he is putting them into these situations to where, hey, some of them have mostly creative input, on how they want to see things go. Instead of him being somebody that steps in and says, okay, Adam, that's a good idea. So we're going to go in this direction with you and Christian. I know that's probably what you want to do, to where people are going to want to see you and Christian fight each other at Full Gear. So here's how we're going to get there. And they're probably planning that, mostly Christian and Adam, there's no doubt. But Tony Khan should have been stepping on that pedal right off the bat. The same with the Jay White MJF situation. You want to use Jay White as a substitute because Adam Cole is out right now with an injury or supposed injuries for all we know. Then make it more intriguing. I mean, yeah, the match is going to be great, but make it more intriguing. Maybe put a stipulation out there that says if Jay White wins, not only does he officially become champion and officially have possession of the title, which he currently has because he stole it in storyline, but MJF then maybe, let's say, has to join Bullet Club Gold. He has to become a member of Bullet Club Gold, and he has to be the lackey. He has to earn his stripes, if you will. You do that, hey, that makes things interesting. That makes things interesting. You never know. And then Kenny Omega against the Don Callis family. Chris Jericho against the Don Callis family. I mean, come on. You got to do something to get that burning up again. They got to get something to get that sizzling again. Because right now it is simmering down to cold in the eyes of a lot of folks. And that's not good. You need to get to, because look, everybody knows, as I mentioned earlier, everybody knows the payoff is Kenny Omega versus Don Callis in some kind of match to where Don Callis has no help whatsoever. He probably will get his ass kicked and be gone from AEW for a while before coming back and being like, hey, I'm a good guy now. Everybody knows that payoff's coming. But it seems that they're taking their time to get there. They're taking their time to get there. And you look at all these other things here, like this going back to Christian. He manipulated Nick Wayne, right? Or Nick Wayne's manipulating him. We don't know. You get the situation between him and Darby Allin. History there. Use that. Use that, if you will. I'm just saying it. You have All these things people are pointing out that you could really capitalize on, you could really build upon, and yet you're not doing it. You are not doing it whatsoever. You know, it's like you're not doing it. You're not doing anything. And this is why AEW is as ice cold as it's getting right now. Now, true, people do point out, and they did point out to Alyx, and I'm sure they've pointed out to others like JD and OTR Central and Solomon Monster and Greg Morgan and all them, and even Sean Ross Sapp, that yes, wrestling, just like any sports entertainment, entity, UFC, Bellator, boxing, sports entities like MLB, NFL, USFL, XFL, or the XFL, USFL, is this going to be known, or whatever they're going to call it, the XSFL, who knows, the WNBA, NHL, college sports. I mean, every single one of them has had cold periods. Despite having maybe some good games, good fights and all that, a lot of them have cold periods. Even during playoff season. Yeah. Even during playoff season. I mean, there have been some pictures, as of late, recently, even during the start of the ALCS and the NLCS, that shows some empty seats. And you're thinking, well, that shouldn't be. These are big-time games. The winners get to go to the World Series. Well, they're empty. And I guarantee you there have been times when they've been emptier than that. And that's because MLB has gone through a cold period. Everybody does. But eventually they find their stride. They pick it back up. And once they find that stride and pick it back up, they never look back. Because they end up going on a hot streak, that keeps them, that keeps them going and keeps people invested for years and decades to come. And pro wrestling is the same way. WWE's been through it many times, we know that. WCW's been through it many times, we know that. ECW, AWA, USWA, WCCW. I mean, even the New Japan has been through it. All Japan, AAA, CMLL, Rev Pro, all these promotions here in North America, South America, the UK, Japan, they've all been through cold periods. And once they've hit their stride again, once they found that stride they needed, they would go on a hot streak for as long as they could. And that's no lie. That's no lie. I mean, MLW, the original MLW, hit its stride, tried to be a success to the ECW to an extent, and it kind of worked, and then they went away, they came back, they hit a cold streak a bit, but once they hit their stride, it's like, phew, they haven't looked back. Billy Corgan recently made the announcement that he has signed a I don't know how many years deal with the CW networks. And not only are you going to get NWA, mostly probably NWA Power on the CW now, but you're going to get a reality show, a behind-the-scenes reality show. The NWA, under our noses, is hitting its stride. It's finding its heat. It's finding its hot streak, and it's getting ready to explode, hopefully. Impact Wrestling, TNA, it's had its ups and down periods. It's cold periods. It's ice cold periods. It's colder than hell periods. We'll put it that way. But guess what? Now they're finding that hot streak again, and they're getting ready to burn through the freaking atmosphere. GCW went through a hot period for a while. They're kind of going through a lukewarm period right now, but you can sense they're getting ready to hit that hot streak again. That's no lie. Sorry about that, but like I said, that's no lie. The fact of the matter is, a lot of companies, wrestling, mixed martial arts, combat sport-wise, all hit a cold streak before they hit a hot streak. I mean, even shows, live action shows, animated shows, sometimes will hit a cold streak before they hit a hot streak. Believe it or not, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, when it started, kind of had a slow start. But as soon as we got to season 3 and everything, and things got a little bit more interesting, that's when it started to hit that hot streak. But it mostly started to hit it, believe it or not, in the season 2 finale. It started to, fester up And throughout season 3, it started to burn harder and harder and harder to the point that Hasbro, I guarantee you, saw the reaction fans had to season 2's finale, and everything. Sorry about that, but like I said, they saw the reaction fans had, with that season 2 finale, and started planning. Mostly as they started noticing the build. They started planning for future seasons, not just season 4 itself, but future seasons afterwards. And that show went on a hot streak like you wouldn't believe. A lot of shows go through that. Friends, I guarantee you, Friends, when it came out, went on a bit of a cold streak, right? Nobody was sure about it, right? But all of a sudden, it hit that particular point in its run, and it just took off like you wouldn't believe. The fact of the matter is, a lot of things go through these kind of situations. Even movies, when they go through multiple sequels after the original, or multiple spin-offs, or connecting films or whatever, sometimes they're going to hit a cold streak. The MCU has been known to do this. The DCEU did it. And they've had to reboot. The MCU, like I said, has been known to do this. They're probably, they're kind of trying to get out of it right now. The Transformers franchise has been known to do this. A lot of them have been through these kind of things before they hit that hot streak. Or before they hit that button that basically puts them into lukewarm, into if not simmering, boiling territory. And then they take off. They don't look back. The fact of the matter is this, folks, no matter how you look at it, right now, AEW is going through that cold streak. And there are several factors, in AEW that I mentioned, that others have mentioned, that could help it simmer again, help it to broil again, to, basically get that fuel it needs to take off like a rocket ship and not look back. It's got all the ingredients it needs to make that happen. And by putting those ingredients together and making it happen, they could not only get people's attention again, but they're going to also, attendance-wise, get to sell tickets. They can. And I think now they're realizing, maybe if we lower our ticket prices, people might come in. And guess what? That's happening. Because apparently it did move some tickets in Rosenberg, Texas, of the Houston region. It did. And now, it's up to them to continue. They know they have something. And they know they have something. And these little tidbits here and there, are essential to making that happen. But it's up to them. So yeah, are they cold right now? Absolutely. Do they have certain elements that I and others have mentioned and I mentioned here? Do they have elements, within the company storyline wise and all that, roster wise and all that, to help them get that fuel that takes them straight to the moon, into where they never look back? Oh, absolutely. And do they have, and can those ingredients, once they're finally put together, into making that fuel that launches them into the stratosphere, and to the point that they don't look back and they keep going and going and going because they're on fire? Can that also, equal to attendance being up? Absolutely. Absolutely. But there's one thing they have to make sure of. One disturbance, one ingredient that can never be added to ensure that this happens. And that's Tony Khan. I'm not saying oust him as the owner. I'm just saying keep him away from interviews. Keep him away from Twitter. Keep him away from social media entirely until he learns how to handle things correctly. Until he learns how to answer the questions he's asked properly instead of avoiding them. Till he learns how to go onto social media and say, hey, I didn't appreciate WWE doing this, but I can understand because I probably would have done the same thing. So all respect to them. And mostly, and mostly above all, to also keep him away till he learns how to act like a real boss and not a fan. And that's a fact. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, like chat during the premiere, like the video. And until then, I am out.